Let's go to the book of go back to Enoch right now, and let's go into the moon now to show you why you cannot deal with cycles according to the moon. All right,
This is the book of Enoch, chapter 73, verse 1.
go ahead.
And after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon. And her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven.
You know what it's calling the moon? A she or a her. The sun is masculine, the moon is feminine. Read.
And her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven. And her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind. And the light is given to her in definite measure. And her rising and setting change every month. And her days are like the days of the sun. And when her light is uniform, in example 4,
When it's full moon, read.
it amounts to the seventh part of the light of the sun. And thus she rises. And her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning. And on that day she becomes visible, and constitutes for you the phase of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun and the portal where the sun rises. And the one half of her goes forth by a seventh part. And her whole circumference is empty, without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it, and the 14th part of her light. And when she receives 1/7 part of the half of her light amounts to 1/7 part and the half thereof. And she sets with the sun. And when the sun rises, the moon rises with him, and receives the half of one part of light. And in that night, and the beginning of her morning, and the commencement of the lunar day, the moon sets with the sun and is invisible, that night with 14 parts and a half of them. And she rises on that day with exactly a seventh part, and comes forth and recedes from the rising of the sun. And in her remaining days she becomes bright, and the remaining 13 parts. Chapter 74, verse 1. And I saw another course, a law for her. And how according to that law she performs her monthly revolution. And all these Uriel, the holy angel, who was the leader of them all, showed to me in their positions. And I wrote down with their positions as he showed them unto me. And I wrote down their months as they were. And the appearance of their lights till 15 days were accomplished. In single seventh parts she accomplishes all her light in the east. And in the single seventh parts accomplishes all darkness in the west. In 2 months the moon sets with the sun. In those 2 middle parts, the third and the fourth, she goes forth for 7 days and turns about and returns again through the portal where the sun rises, and accomplishes all her light, and recedes from the sun in 8 days, enters the 6th portal from which the sun goes forth. And when the sun goes forth from the 4th portal, she goes forth 7 days until she goes forth, and from the 5th and turns back again in 7 days, into the 4th portal, and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes and enters into the 1st portal in 8 days. And she returns again in 7 days into the 4th portal from which the sun goes forth. Thus I saw their position, how the moon rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days. And all the days which accrue to it for one of these 5 years, when they are full, amount to 364 days. And the overplus of the sun and the stars amount to 6 days. And in 5 years, 6 days every year come to 30 days. And the moon falls behind the sun and stars to the number of 30 days. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance nor delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but complete the year with perfect justice in 364 days. In 3 years there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years 1,820 days, so that in 8 years there are 2,912 days. For the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind.
As you can see, the equations are done for you to flawlessly see what year you're in. Just take it 5 years at a time according to the cycle, or 10 years at a time according to the cycle. You didn't have to deal with the moon at all because the moon come up short, and it shows you this. You have to deal with the cycle of when the year comes in. Now, like I was mentioning earlier, before you read what you have here, all right? Matter of fact, go ahead and read this here, because I'm going to go into who injected this moon calendar into Israel's society, into our people's society. Up until these others came into our lives and began to destroy us, we followed a regular 364-day cycle. Every 7 days was the Sabbath. When the beginning of the year would come in, the first week was a Sabbath, the second week was the Passover. The next weekend was the Passover. It was that simple. It's not hard. The 14th day of the month. It's that simple. Okay? Finish reading what you have in the Qumran Caves.
This is the Dead Sea Scrolls, page 347 in the title.
Now the reason he's able to give you the Dead Sea Scrolls here is because the Essenes, whom the Most High put a spirit on to escape the hands of those who was trying to oppress us, went out into the sticks and began to scribe our records and put them in earthen clay and bury them in case the other nations destroy us. So they found this record in the Qumran Caves near Ethiopia. So the Most High put a spirit on the Essenes to actually record the original calendar, to describe all, they scribed all of our records, even the extra records. They scribed Enoch, they scribed Jubilees, they scribed a lot of different records, and they scribed records from the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's in the Dead Sea Scrolls that are not in any other text. And you know who owns it now? The Jewish powers that be. And they cut out certain fragments so that you don't understand how you fit in this. Here's another thing. In this same record, the Dead Sea Scrolls, it tells us at the very end, and this is why they don't want our people to go into the Middle East or outside of America, that at the end, the Most High will plant Judah, Benjamin, and Levi in the desert to fight against Esau in the last battle of Armageddon. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That Judah, Benjamin, and Levi will be in the Middle East, and they don't want us there, knowing that the Most High was going to give us power from on high. They don't want us nowhere near the areas in which the Most High is going to protect us, because we'll have power. It's in their Dead Sea Scrolls, but they don't teach you this in church. You don't really know your purpose as a nation. They had to separate you from that so that you can be a cog in their machine, opposed to working for your own nation and for your own betterment. But go ahead, get the point you had to say there.
Right, this is titled Calendars of Priestly Courses. It says 12 fragmentary manuscripts from Cave 4, paleographically dated to the late 2nd century BCE, present in various forms the peculiar solar calendar, constructed in 6 sequences. It says their year consisted of 12 months of 30 days each, plus 4 extra days added to each of the 4 seasons, basically what you just mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
It says some documents from 4Q attempt to combine this calendar with the various priestly courses which serve in the temple for a week at a time from one Sabbath to the following Friday. They also combine with the dates of the full moon given according to the days of the week of duty of the priestly course, the date of the solar month and equivalent date of the lunar calendar of mainstream Judaism, and it has in brackets given the calendar of mainstream Judaism, and it shows the actual time in which it comes to. It says a year of 12 months of 29 or 30 days, 354 days. 10 days short of what we just
They're
showed in
off.
Enoch.
They're off. 354 days. And also I did the research even on their Passover. You know what the Passover the Jewish people have? They go off of the first, listen to this, the first full moon after the spring equinox. I did it last year. I looked it up from last year, April 6th, full moon. That thing with the werewolf and all that, they into all that. Okay, they feel they get certain power with the full moon. They into all, the Gentiles deal like that. Don't forget, Romulus and Remus, the two children who they claim was children part Nephilim, or what they would call part demigod, was reared by a she-wolf. Okay? That they sucked from a she-wolf and gained power. And they howled at the moon. This is what they dealt with. Now, when they started injecting their holy days and started coming against us, eventually we began to deal with the phases of the moon opposed to the regular new year. Now, I know this is probably going over a lot of people's head, and that's fine. Sit back and study it, because a lot of you are fairly new. But understand that there's a great significance, because don't forget, the Most High promised us before, when we were in captivity, he promised us that he would begin to show himself to us. He would begin to give us back our knowledge, our language, our understanding, our holy days. We wasn't going to stay in this condition forever. So this is significant that we are able now to get ourselves back on the Most High's holy days. That's big. All right? Now, the information I have here from one of the books of Thebes, Robert E. Smith breaks down a few things concerning the moon. The new moon calendar. Read it for me.
It states, the new moon calendar was the official calendar of the Greeks.
Was the official calendar of the Greeks.
And when Alexander the Great conquered the Middle East at the end of the 4th century BCE, the lunar calendar was introduced and was gradually accepted by most of the people except for the Hebrews.
Except for the Hebrew people. And anybody know about Alexander the Greek, you're talking about around 333 BC. Around 300 years before Christ came on the scene. He's running around with all types of wickedness, dealing with this general, dealing with men and all that stuff. Killing other people, taking down countries. He took down parts of Asia and put Edomites there. All this is what Alexander the Greek did. There's nothing great about him. They want to call him Alexander the Great. And force people into following the moon. Read on.
By 167 BC, King Antiochus IV gave orders to Jerusalem's high priest Menelaus to completely Hellenize the Jews and abandon the Enoch calendar in favor of the new moon calendar.
He told them to abandon the Enoch calendar in favor of what?
In favor of the new moon calendar.
In favor of the new moon calendar. Okay? Read.
King Antiochus banned the Hebrew religion and prohibited all religious practices. He sent a senator from Athens to give the Hebrew people an ultimatum to forsake the laws of their God.
To forsake the laws of their God.
And follow the king's orders or be put to death.
Follow the king's orders or be put to death. That was the ultimatum our priests and leaders had during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, who's written of in Scripture. We're going to get him in a moment. Read.
So most of the Hebrew people followed the king's orders to save their families, and many were put to death.
Go ahead.
King Antiochus forced the Hebrew people to celebrate the birthday of the moon every month.
See that? The new moon. He forced people to do what?
King Antiochus forced the Hebrew people to celebrate the birthday of the new moon every month.
The birthday of the moon every month. That was Antiochus that came under the Gentiles. Jubilees told us don't follow the moon. And we won't anymore. You can believe that. Read on.
at the time of the visible crescent, and he ordered them to worship his god Zeus.
His God who?
Zeus.
There go Jesus again. Oh, you thought it started in our time, huh? There go Jesus. They get you going and coming. Read.
When he dedicated the temple in Jerusalem to Zeus, the Lord of heaven, Baal Shemen, and began sacrificing swine and making abominable offerings on the altar.
And they started sacrificing swine in the altar. And you know where you can read that at? You can read that in this book right here. Oh, it's all tore up. The Josephus. The Josephus. The War of the Jews. When the Edomites began to war against us, Antiochus Epiphanes came in to change our times and laws. Edomite. Today he will be called Jewish. All right, and that's why they follow the phases of the moon for all their holy days. Do you know that they got a holy day after the Passover, the month afterwards? They got a holy day called the Jewish Mysticism Day. What is that? Do you know that's a holy day from Jewish people? Look it up. Jewish Mysticism Day. What's this? They got holy days none of us have ever heard of. And they make the Christians believe that they're the Jews, they're the people that's following God's law. No. You talking Harry Potter here. You talking straight sorcery and witchcraft. All right? They're following the same days they've been following under ancient Greece. Before that, they took it from ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt. Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, they follow the same practices and just giving it Hebrew names and trying to color it with Passover. Then they got 1 month, they say the first month is the month Nisan. Nisan is a god. Nisan is actually a Greek god. They got 1 month called Tammuz on their calendar. They got a month called Tammuz. Tammuz was the virgin Babylonian child of Semiramis. Okay? Finish reading what you have there, because it's something key there. Before you go go to the War of the Jews. Get it out of the Apocrypha first on Antiochus Epiphanes. And let's get it out of here. War of the Jews, chapter 1, verse 1.
This is 1 Maccabees, the first chapter.
Okay.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 9.
Okay, someone want to know who this guy is. Let me show you a picture of him. The demon, Antiochus Epiphanes. See, you see his coin right? See the coin right here? That's him, right? I meticulously picked this picture because I want you to see him right here. You see the God he's worshiping, which is a giant? Look at the people, how small the people is. Right there. That's in front of him. To show you that they were worshiping giants. Here's the people. Right in his hand, just small little people worshiping a giant. It's on their coins. They were giants in the land in those days. Why? Because they were part Horite. Esau mixed with the Horites. And those that are in the academy tomorrow will get the full teaching on Esau. His mixture, his family, everything will be in the academy tomorrow. There he is. The demon that came into our homeland and began to destroy and made us follow their holy days. And then he totally desecrated the temple. He had them bring flocks, thousands of pigs in Jerusalem and began to slaughter them on the Most High's altar in disrespect. Yeah. Let's read about Antiochus in the book, the Apocrypha, in the book of Maccabees.
This is Maccabees, 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus,
surnamed
Epiphanes.
He's written of in Scripture. He's the one where it talks about in Daniel 7:25, will think to change times and laws. He operated around 157, around the time between 157 and 155 BC.
Son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
See that? He reigned in the latter years of the Greeks. He set the Edomites up. He finished what Alexander the Greek started. And eventually sacked Jerusalem. The whole blueprint on how to destroy our people came from this guy. Later, Vespasian and Titus used it. Later, another cross-dresser, what's his name? Nero, the cross-dresser. He used it against us. Let's get it out of the War of the Jews real quick.
This is Josephus' War of the Jews, book 1, chapter 1, section 1. At the same time that Antiochus, who was called Epiphanes, had a quarrel with the sixth Ptolemy about his right to the whole country of Syria, a great sedition fell among the men of power in Judea, and they had a contention about obtaining the government, while each of those that were of dignity could not endure to be subject to their equals. However, Onias, one of the high priests, got the better, and cast the sons of Tobias out of the city, who fled to Antiochus and besought him to make use of them for his leaders, and to make an expedition into Judea. The king being thereto disposed beforehand, complied with them, and came upon the Jews with a great army.
He came upon the Jews, which are us, with a great army. This wasn't a white people against white people here. All right? It was him that slaughtering our people. Read.
The king being thereto disposed beforehand, complied with them, and came upon the Jews with a great army, and took their city by force, and slew a great multitude of those that favored Ptolemy, and sent out his soldiers to plunder them without mercy. He also spoiled the temple, and put a stop to the constant practice of offering a daily sacrifice of expiation for 3 years and 6 months. But Onias the high priest fled to Ptolemy, and received a place from him in the Nomus of Heliopolis.
And you notice that he started taking the daily sacrifice away? That was the daily food for the people. You notice how the world governments are now using that same platform to control food and cut food off? Same exact agenda. Read.
Where he built a city resembling Jerusalem, and a temple that was like its temple, concerning which we shall speak in its proper place hereafter.
So this guy started killing people. When you read down further, he began to set up his own priests, and eventually injected the moon calendar and had us follow festivals according to their moon phases. Now all of our holy days is out of course. You're not following the Passover on a Sabbath anymore. You're following it according to a new moon. That's what they did to us. Now there's more. Let's go to Daniel 7:25.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 25.
Go ahead.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High,
And he shall speak great words against the Most High,
and think to change times and laws.
and shall think to change times and laws. This speaking first of Antiochus Epiphanes. He shall think to change times and laws. What times and laws? Well, we read out of the Bible. The Bible's times and laws. The Most High's people's times and laws. No wonder when the Gentiles have set up their institutions and their churches, now they teach you God's law doesn't matter. Why? It doesn't matter to them. That's why they teach that. They shall think to change times and laws. Did they change times and laws? Well, no. Because the sun still come out the time the Most High tell it to come out. It still start the same cycle every year, 364 days, without halting 1 second. So the Most High is doing what he did from the beginning. But it's the illusion they have taught us, and also the traditions they've given us have separated us from the Most High's time. All right? He shall think to change times and laws. And what else will he do?
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
What's the great words? You got evolution that they have. The law of God don't matter. Right? And shall do what? Wear out what?
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And we have been wore out under them. That's captivity. That's slavery. Who are the saints? We're the saints. The saints are not in your Catholic Church. The saints of the Most High, according to the Bible, are the children of Israel. Get me Psalms, the 50th chapter, the 5th and 6th verse, so we can identify the saints according to the Bible. It's not those idols you lighting candles to in your Catholic Church. You're talking about Saint Bob and Saint Mary and all these other idols and demons. Okay, read it.
Psalms chapter 50, verse 5.
Go ahead.
Gather my saints together unto me,
Gather my saints together unto me,
those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice.
those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. Okay, now, let me give you an example of how we deal with the holy days. Let's go to Leviticus 23 real quick. And I'm going to, the lesson is not complete. We're still going over a few things, especially during the time of Christ, because something was implemented that we've just mentioned that threw off some time, and there was 3 or 4 separate calendars going on at one time, and that's why I have the record of the Roman calendar. There was even 2 separate Passovers going on at one time. So now what we're doing now is going into the research of the Greek and the New Testament to get the correct day that Christ rose. Because in the New Testament, that word day in certain places is not even there. It's not even there in the Greek. The word day is in other places, but when it says she went on the first day of the week, the word day is not even there at all. I can give you an example right here so you can see it yourself. I want you to see it yourself. So we're still doing the research on this. So this is really an incomplete lesson, but we wanted to give you what we needed to give you first so that we can set these holy days in order once and for all. Okay? Got a phrase, right?
Mm-hmm. Matthew 28.
Yes. Yeah, you can get that one there. The bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew 28:1. Now we're reading this. In the English, it says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it dawned toward the first day of the week. Right? But when you look at it, it's in the end of the Sabbath, as it began toward the first of the week, came Mary. Right? And when you look at that week, it says, what word do we have there for week, lawyer?
Sabbaton.
Sabbath. What word do we have here for Sabbath?
Sabbaton.
Sabbath and week is the same word. So that's why we got to do the research to go into the 3 days to show you what day Christ rose, because we have different calendars. We got one calendar of the Romans. We got another calendar of the Sanhedrin, who was following days that was injected by Antiochus Epiphanes. So we know that they were actually operating on a different calendar than Christ. The example I can give you, the night Christ went to do the Passover, that was the Passover night. He was taken the next morning to the ward, and then Caiaphas said that we cannot go into the hall of the Gentiles or we'll be unclean, and we will not be able to take on the Passover tonight. So how is it they have a Passover one day and Christ had a Passover another day? Now you're starting to understand. Christ was on the Most High's clock. He wasn't on the clock that happened when Antiochus Epiphanes came in. The disciples were on a different clock. And the house that they actually had the Passover at, that was a community that was on the correct clock. The same way you got all the Hebrews today, all these different groups following different days. So we're going into the 3 days and 3 nights to get the understanding of that, because we know that there's some distortion in how they're teaching it. I want to show you all this. Matter of fact, I can bring it to you here. As you can see here, make sure you can see here. When you look right here where it says day, that word day is grayed out. And we looked in our concordance. And that word day is not there. That word week is 4-5-21, which is Sabbath, which is the same as this word right here, 4-5-2-1, Sabbath. So we're doing the research in the Greek because we understand when the Romans came on the scene, they did everything to try to have you believe in the Sunday worship. So that's the next stage we're taking. But beyond any shadow of a doubt, we have the holy days right, according to the right calendar. Beyond any shadow of a doubt. And here's an example how to do it. Let's go to Leviticus 23.
This is Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1.
Read.
And the Most High Ahiah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And say unto them, concerning the feast of the Most High Ahiah,
Concerning the feast of the Most High,
which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts.
even these are my feasts. Go ahead.
6 days shall work be done,
6 days shall work be done,
but the seventh is the Sabbath of rest.
but the seventh is the what?
Is the Sabbath of rest.
But the seventh is the Sabbath of rest. Go ahead.
In holy convocation ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Most High Ahiah in all your dwellings.
Go ahead.
These are the feasts of the Most High Ahiah, even holy convocations which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. And the 14th day of the first month.
Now let's go into the second week. The 14th day of the first month is what?
At evening is the Most High Ahiah's Passover.
That's the second Sabbath of the new year. Flawlessly, 14 days from the beginning of the year. the 364-day year. It's that simple. It's not after a moon. All right? And you follow this pattern, you can get all the holy days throughout the year flawlessly. Now, one other thing. Some people might ask, well, what about the moons then? It say new moons. Well, have you went into the Hebrew? Look at this. I need you to go to Genesis 37 and 9.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 9. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance
To me.
to me.
Now, when you see the word moon, what Hebrew word do you have there for moon?
Yerach.
Give him the Hebrew number.
H 3394.
And what word is it?
Yerach.
Yerach, which means moon. Now let's get new moon. Don't forget, 3394 is what a moon is. Let's get new moon when it comes to the holy day, new moon, and let's see what that gives us. Let's go to 1 Samuel 20 and 5.
This is the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 20, verse 5. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go that I may hide myself in the field until the third day at evening.
Hold up now. And I need you to get, you ready? I need you to get the Hebrew word for moon right there.
This is H2320. The Hebrew word is chadash.
Chadash, an entirely different word. And what do chadash means?
Chadash is the new moon. By implication, month.
By implication, what?
A month.
The new month. There's 4 new months in a year that brings in a season. It's before the month comes in. It have nothing to do with the moon. It's new month. So you cannot follow phases of the moon. It's new month. An entirely different word when you go into the Hebrew. All right? And when it goes to the new, when people say, well, we need to deal with the moon for this and for that, nah. Can't do it. All right? Now, I know some out there who've been following these different holy days will begin to extrapolate or take part of this lesson or try to break down part of this lesson. Only thing I ask, if you don't believe what we're saying, don't extrapolate and try to take pieces and bits. Show the whole thing. Okay? Show the whole thing. Because you can extrapolate and then try to explain, try to claim you explaining what we said here. I want to make it clear. We just want to make sure that we're on the right days according to the Most High, opposed to the ignorance that have been imposed on us for years from the Gentiles. The Most High is perfect in his Sabbaths. He got 52 of them per year, right on a dime. The second one is the Passover. Don't get no simpler than that. I don't got to go outside and look at what the moon is doing. Maybe the moon is spinning left. Maybe it's spinning right. I don't got nothing to do with that. Maybe it's slithering a little bit. Hey, you can do that. I know that the beginning of the year starts when there's equal day, equal night. Boom. That's the last day of the year. When the sun go down, I'm into the new year. Now, of course, I have to give you a date of when that will start. And you guess what? The new year always come in on the first day of the week. Ain't that sweet? That's nice, ain't it? So, let me give you the new year for this year. March 17th. March 17th is the new year. And when you go to the second Sabbath, it's the Sabbath. Friday sundown, the second Sabbath. Friday sundown. That's simple. That's Passover. Don't get any easier than that. And if you want to know how they calculate it, you're going to see it on our website, and also the day before that, the 16th, equal day, equal night. The day before that. Okay? Any questions?
Does it matter where you are on this planet?
It doesn't matter where you are because it's equal day and night wherever it comes in all over the earth. But we just use Jerusalem coordinates and Mount Sinai coordinates. And the site we go to, you can actually put the coordinates for where the Most High was speaking to us at. You can go to Sinai, you can go to Jerusalem. We put in Jerusalem because we know the sun rise in that area.
So you said it's only 9 parts to the day and night, right? 18 parts, I think.
It's 18 parts altogether.
So how do you count the parts? Like how do you know which part you're in?
Yeah,
80 minutes,
80 minutes per part.
starting from like what the sun coming up, or
Starting from the sun is 80 minutes per. But you know the evening brings in the day. But when the sun comes up, it's 80 minutes per.
okay.
80 minutes per part. Instead of 60-minute intervals, it was 80-minute intervals.
Oh yeah, was one of those one of the months was it 12 parts in the day and 6 parts in the night? Was that one of them?
Yeah.
So so what month was that? Because I remember Christ had said it to somebody. He said, "Don't you know it's 12 parts in a day?"
Well, I got to look into that. Yeah. We got it all written down here. We can go into that separate from the brothers and sisters here. Exactly. Now you see how they can give you some understanding of when
Yeah.
Christ was talking about what month we was in.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got all the parts written down, right? Here you go. All right. Let's open it up for questions. Or let me